Hi guys, Hag Sameach, Yom Teruah Sameach, Tov Yom Teruah, all of those are applicable. It means that today is Teruah. It's the first day of the seventh month. What I want to do today is I realized on my Facebook page that there are some people that don't know a lot of the scriptural basis for observing the things of Jehovah. So I want to do just a quick new moon, new month 101. And this is not by any way, shape, or form to be an in-depth teaching of it, just the foundational scriptures and the foundational application of how we look at the stars, the moon, and the sun. And actually, it's the reverse order. It's the sun, the moon, the stars, and that's important. In the Torah, I'm a real stickler that we look at the order that things are given in, and it is given exactly as the sun, the moon, and the stars, and we're going to see why. So I want to look at those things and just give just a 101 of very basic scriptural references to help people understand what we're talking about, because I actually have had some questions that or statements of lack of understanding. Okay, just going to cut right to the chase here in Genesis 1:14. And God said, "Let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years." Okay. Now, if we go back to the very beginning of Genesis, let me go there where he made the first day. Okay, and where it goes into day 1, I'm looking real quickly. And he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now listen to the order. And the evening and the morning were the first day. This is why that we keep our day count starting at sunset and ending at sunset. Our days in the Bible literally begin at sunset and literally end in sunset. Now, the next thing I want you to see is that, we go to the verse real quick. On the sixth day, God created man. And on the seventh day, the first thing that man did was celebrate a Sabbath. It says, "And on the seventh day God ended his work which he hath made, and he rested on the seventh day from all of his work which he made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in that he had rested from all of his work which God had created and made." So biblically speaking, and in the land of Israel, our days began at sunset, and we have our last day of the week. Our seventh day of the week is Friday night at sunset until Saturday night at sunset. When we wake up on Sunday, it is as our Monday. It's a regular work week, and everything is open: the post office, the banks, the stores, the doctors, the federal buildings, you name it. It is exactly as a Monday would be in a country that keeps the weekend, the 5-day work week, and the weekend as the end of the week. It's our first day of the week, literally. Now, in the Bible, I don't have a specific um, verse I can give you on this. Oh, by the way, really quick. So we know, it's obvious to us, even, us that don't pay attention to anything, that a day is governed by the sun. When the sun comes around every 24 hours, we call it another day, and that's governed by the sun. Now, on the next one, about the moon being for the months, I cannot point to you specifically for a verse that says, "Thus saith Jehovah, the new moon is for all your months," but we see the definition of it in the very word in Hebrew for month. Okay, the word Ya'ar and the word Kodesh are used pretty much interchangeably. And the month, the Kodesh, the moon, was the new cycle of the month. Let me see if I can find a good one to share with you. Let me look here real quick. Okay, I'll use this one as a segue into the year. It's in Hebrews 12:2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Now let me read it to you with the Hebrew word in place, which we've already learned. What is the Hebrew word for month? Kodesh. What does Kodesh means? It means the renewing of the moon. It means the appearing of the moon after it has gone dark and after it comes back and starts reflecting the light of the sun. And this Chodesh, and the Strong says the new moon, by implication a month, and this Chodesh shall be unto you the beginning of Chodeshes, Chodeshim. It shall be the Rishon, the first Chodesh of the Shana, of the year to you. Okay, so we have a lunar month that we observe according to the Bible. And a lunar month is almost exactly 29 days. It's 29 days and a fraction. So what I was doing last night is I knew when the last lunar month began, the 6th month in the Creator's reckoning of months. He only numbers them, he does not name them. I knew that the 6th month, the date that I had observed that, and I counted forward 30 days. And I tried to go out last night to view literally the sliver, they call it the waxing when it's growing in its illumination, the sliver of the moon. But it was not possible, and I'll go into that a little bit here at the end. But the next thing I want to show you is that the stars, which have a rotation, the Bible says a course that it's set on, marks our years. To know this really quick, I'm just going to tell you the story of the Exodus. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to give you a lot of references in the scriptures because most of us have read that. And if you do want me to give you the exact scripture where Abib is mentioned the first time in Exodus, I'll do that. Just drop me a note in Facebook or on this YouTube comments box. But the first place that we see the Abib is mentioned is when hail destroyed the crops in Egypt, when Jehovah God was showing that he is God and he was hardening Pharaoh's heart to prove himself to the Israelites before he brought them out of Egypt into the desert and wandered them around for 40 years in the wilderness. He was proving himself to them. So he was hardening Pharaoh's heart, and he sent the hail and he destroyed the crops. Well, it says that the flax was literally green, too green. And it was, let me just go there. Hang on. Let's just look at it really close. So you're going to go ahead and get the verse reference here. It's just better. Exodus 9:31. I'm trying not to make this very long, but it'll be what it is. And the flax and the barley were smitten with the hail. They were struck. For the barley was green, okay? And the flax was boiled. It was in the flower. It was in the bloom. Okay, but the rice and the rye, they were not smitten because they had not grown up. They had not come up out of the ground yet. The seed was still laying in the ground. So the flax and the barley were smitten, and the flax was in the flour, and the Abib, it says, was in the ear. I'm sorry, the barley was in the ear, but that word literally means it was Abib. It was green. It was a young ear of grain. And that's why we refer to the first month as the month of the Abib, because we're going to see right here in Exodus 13:14, and the day ye come out in the month of the Abib. Okay, that is the beginning of the year. Let me find the beginning of the year in the month of the Abib. Hold on. So Exodus 13:14 says, this day came you out in the month of the Abib. And then it says in Exodus 12:2, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of years to you. Okay, so we know now that it was during the time of the Abib barley, the green barley, when it was in a kernel or a head, that they came out of Egypt. But it's by the courses of the stars that we know how to determine this. And let me just give you an example what I've learned about this. So this is where we've ended up. We've got the sun for days, we've got the moon for months, and we've got the stars for years. Now, we know this because we use the Abib to reckon our year with. And we learned through history to reckon our year by the stars. It's governed by the observance of the lunar and agricultural seasons here in the land of Israel. That's the way God instituted it. You know, if you've been listening to me, you know that the natural teaches the spiritual, and we understand the spiritual by the natural. And that's the way that God created it. I mean, He wrote His Torah on His creation for us to understand Him better by. And then we were created to work the earth, which we've been separated from, so that we would understand His things better. They're tactile, we can touch them, and they teach us about Him who is spirit. By the way, the law is spirit. Okay, so the new year begins on the first sliver moon of the renewed moon. Okay, so we have 12 months, just like the Gregorian calendar, and that's what the calendar in the U.S. is called, is Gregorian. We have 12 months, but our 12 months only have 30-day cycles, and our years have only 360 days rather than 365. And this coincides better with what happens in the stars. Twice a year we have equinoxes. What is an equinox? It's days when the daylight hours and the nighttime hours are almost equal. And then when you pass that night into when they start gaining in the spring, the daylight starts gaining in the amount of time it shines as opposed to night. When they pass that point, your seasons change. So in the springtime, the days start lengthening, the days start warming, things start growing, things start giving birth, animals give birth. And in the fall equinox, when they come back that they're equal again, and you pass that, then there's less daylight and the sun starts gaining. And the darkness starts gaining, and the nights are longer, and it starts getting colder, and things stop growing and stop dying back. Okay, so it is with the spring equinox and the change of the season. After that happens, with our 360 cycle and our 30-day month cycles, after that happens, which is all like a Swiss clock that the Creator put in place for us to know these things. Jehovah made these so that we could look up in the heavens and know Him. After that happens, then it's the first sliver new moon, and we'll go into why it's an observable moon. That happens in conjunction with the time that an Abib barley can be harvested. And why do we know it has to be tied to the Abib barley? Because if you go into Leviticus 23 and look at the first fruits offering, they were to wave a barley sheaf during the week of unleavened bread on the day after that weekly Sabbath, which was called first fruits. They were to wave a barley sheaf in the temple before Jehovah. So in order for us to observe the first month of the moon, month of the moon, that's right, month of the year, we have to have Abib barley. The Creator said this would be the beginning of our months. The month that we walked out of Egypt, this is the beginning of our months. Now, why do we have to have a new moon sliver? Because everything of Jehovah is established by 2 or more witnesses. He established that in Deuteronomy 17:6, that out of the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3, that everything is established. Now, he also calls in Deuteronomy 28, 29, 30, someplace around in there, that heaven and earth are his witnesses. He says heaven and earth will testify you against you whether or not you obey my commandments. And that has to do with the fruitfulness of the work of their hand if they were obedient. If they were obedient, then the earth and heaven yielded, the stars, the climate yielded to their hands and caused them to be fruitful. If they were disobedient, they would not yield. No rain, the season would be too hot, be too cold, famine and plague, all of these things were a witness of heaven and earth. Now that's why he also says, until heaven and earth pass away, seed time and harvest will remain. Okay, so these are all things that point that we really, if we have the Torah in us, if we've heard it a few times, that if we look up and look around us, we see the Creator everywhere. His signature's on everything. His signature is there to remind us that He exists in what we're to do. So last night was the night that we were to try and observe the full moon. It was 30 days since the last time that I had observed it, and we were just really blessed that we were asked to be involved in the observance this month specifically for those in Israel who do keep their life ordered by the 30-day lunar cycle as Jehovah commanded us. We were just really honored that we were asked to participate in it. Now, there was a reason specifically they were asked to participate in it, and I'll try to explain a little bit. When the new moon is available to see with the naked eye in the sky, as David would have seen it, as Paul would have seen it, as Yeshua would have seen it. When it's available to see in its new moon sliver form, as it's beginning to reflect the light of the sun again, it usually has to be about 3%, 2.8 to 3% luminosity. In perfect conditions, I suppose we could see it with less luminosity, but with our conditions that we were in last night, we only had about 0.9% to 1.9% during our available window that we could see it of luminosity that this moon was going to reflect. So yesterday as well, we had a very short, I think they call it lag time, I'll say a window, when after the sun was completely set so it no longer cast a light in the sky. Now, this is not true every month, but last night it was specifically true because the sun had so much more illumination than the moon would have in its phase of waxing, that it would be easily overpowered by the light of the sun. So from the time that the sun got down and really got to the point to where it wasn't making its red color or its sunset color in the sky, to the time that the moon itself sat down below the horizon, we really only had about a 20-minute window. And since we were working against the brightness of the sun, we were working against the low light of the moon, we were working against the dust storm that we've been under the whole until oh my goodness, yesterday we thought was the clearest day we had had in almost a week, when we didn't have a red sky from the dust that was hanging in the atmosphere, and we still did have some of that. And in addition to the dust we had, lo and behold, we had some cloud cover. So these are the things that we go through to observe what the moon, which will determine the month, is telling us. Now, especially with the 7th month, which I will teach spiritually a little short lesson on Yom Teruah in the Old Testament and the spiritual application of Yom Teruah in the believer's life. I'll do a little short teaching on that, but especially on Yom Teruah. we have to watch very closely, because if I had spotted the sliver moon, and I had my husband Moshe was with me, if we had spotted it and we had submitted our information, we were to give a photo of the picture, the time, and the location. He was with me. We were going to give each our separate photos and accounts from our email accounts and from our smartphones. We were going to send them right in to the Karaite Society here in Jerusalem, in Israel, so that the new moon could be proclaimed after they reviewed the pictures and made sure they were legitimate. Then Yom Teruah would have began in that moment. So I had to prepare the food ahead of time, have that ready, and then we were waiting for the appearing of the new moon so that we could proclaim the first day of the 7th month. That's 101, Creator's calendar, Creator's reckoning, Jehovah's calendar, Jehovah's reckoning of time. And I just wanted to share that with you to help you understand. And then the next one will be on the spirit of Yom.